Lots of people under
After the
evacuation
recent
orders
mass
Why? Nobody has answered for that.
Imagine that is now taken away from you.
These are the faces of some of the biggest news stories in America.
We want justice!
Where's the compassion?
So they need to think about what happened.
George Floyd!
Faces that over time faded from the headlines as attention turned elsewhere. Now we're putting the spotlight back on them. Each week, we're traveling to places home to major news stories you may remember.
Everything you work for, just all gone.
And introducing you to people who say it's important you get the full story.
When you have an understanding with a community, people come together.
We're here to support them in this crisis time.
Because we often don't fully learn the impact of an event.
You just can't dwell in the past, and the past is in the past, let it go.
Until we look at it in hindsight. You might remember the Bring Back Our Girls movement. In 2014, more than 270 girls were kidnapped by the terrorist group Boko Haram. Their story grabbed headlines across the world. Right now, we're on our way to the home of a woman named Joy. She is one of those girls who were kidnapped a decade ago. Today, she lives outside of Charleston, South Carolina. Just as I know it's a story you've told a lot, but when people ask about what happened in 2014, how do you tell them?
I start with what happened and how it progressed from there. So we were actually sleeping that night. We were all sleeping, and I don't remember falling asleep. I just remember us having a great night. Some girls were beating the buckets, making sounds, music, and some of us were dancing. Some of us were just chit-chatting. And I guess during the chit-chat, I fell asleep, but I just remembered being woken up by one of my best friends. And I was asking what's going on, and she said the Boko Haram people are here.
Boko Haram terrorists broke into a Christian girls' school in the town of Chibok on the night of April 14th. 276 girls were taken from the dorms. The Nigerian military didn't get reinforcements to the school in time to prevent the kidnapping, despite 4 hours advance notice of the attack.
And then all of us were asked to stand up. We all stood up. They led us out the dormitory and asked us to walk with them. We were walking. And every single building, when we stepped out of our dormitory, every single building was set on fire. Of course, none of us wants to die. So we all just helped each other into the trucks. And we all got into the trucks, and then they started driving us far away from home. And then I started thinking, I will never see my mom again. I will never see my dad again. Not my siblings, not my loved one, not everyone. I will not see anyone at all. And that's when it hit me. And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't want that. It's either I jump and I die, or I stay here and go with these people. And I don't want to go with them based off of the stories I've heard and what they do that I've seen too. So I decided to jump. And as soon as I put my feet out the truck and just turned my back, and I was holding the back of the truck still, I could just feel my leg kind of wiggling in the air. I did let go, and I fell flat on my tummy. One thing I remember realizing is I was still alive and I was breathing. I was in pain, but I was still alive. And the number one thing that I could think of in that moment is to get away as far as possible.
Joy was one of 57 girls who jumped off the Boko Haram trucks as they drove toward the terrorist stronghold in northern Nigeria.
So I continued running and running and running. I ran, and then I ran into two girls that also jumped out of the truck. And I was like, when did you guys jump out? And so we all decided to run together, and we ran throughout the whole night.
How far did you run?
We ran, I honestly haven't kept track. My goal was just to get home, and it doesn't matter how far it was. I was tired, I was hungry, I was all those things, but my goal is just to get home.
Joy and the two other girls eventually received help from a passing farmer on a motorcycle.
We all fit. It was a tight fit, but we all fit. And then he drove us all the way to Chibok, and he dropped us off at the market area.
What was it like when you knew you were safe?
That was a very funny question, because I still didn't feel safe. Because they literally...
When did you feel safe?
I felt safe when I walked into my house, when I walked in and saw my mom running to hug me. That was when I felt safe.
"2024 marks 10 years since the 276 girls were kidnapped from the school in Chibok. While many have been set free or escaped, dozens are still missing today. How often do you think about the girls that are still missing?
Honestly, every week. Every week it comes up.
And for those who haven't been following it, and if it's okay to ask, I mean, what's the reality likely for those who did not escape?
The reality, so for the girls that came back, I heard like what kind of things they went through. Some of them were either like sold or got married to like the Boko Haram members, and some of them of course came back with kids because they were married. And it's just traumatizing, because right now you're trying to understand like, okay, I was kidnapped by this person, and I know this person is a bad person, but this is my kid's father. And it's a very conflicted and confusing thing to have to deal with at that age. And I cannot imagine it.
For Joy, now living in the United States, she's attended schools in Virginia and Florida. She has her GED, high school diploma, bachelor's degree, and even her master's. She now works as a social worker in Charleston, South Carolina, helping those impacted by trauma.
For me, what helped me heal is knowing the fact that I was among so many girls, and somehow I was chosen to be one of those who were safe. And I believe there was a purpose for it. So I'm not gonna sit around and just beat myself up and be all sad and moody and grumpy.
Do you have moments like that though, when you think back to it?
I do, and mostly it's where I'm like, but there was 300, why did you choose me? Why me? Like those kind of questions I did have. Just because I've been through a lot of things doesn't mean it weighs me down. I still need to be up, be resilient, and move on with life, which is what's made me succeeded. Or else, if I was to just continue on being depressed and having all this PTSD and stuff like that, I don't see myself finishing high school, college, or getting my master's. So you just can't dwell in the past, and the past is in the past. Let it go. What is today? What are you going to learn today?
That was a whole debate I had to have, and explaining why that is my calling, and that's what I feel more comfortable with.
Because chemistry wasn't my best friend, and I didn't like chemistry.
It's tough.
So yeah, but
what is it about social work that you like?
I love social work because I get to help those who are in need. I think I became a social worker because that was something that I can help other people with, especially if I'm not able to help my own people. Especially when it happened where like we were taken. When we came back, there was a whole depression and PTSD that I was experiencing that I didn't even know what it was called at the time. But studying social work, I kind of more understand what depression is, PTSD, what causes it, and all of that. And I was like, okay, I do like this, and I get to talk to people, I get to provide resources, I get to understand and provide that emotional support for them and just make sure they're well and taken care of, which wasn't something we had.
Since her escape and journey to the U.S., Joy Bashara has appeared on national morning shows. Her speaking engagements have drawn large crowds. Does it take a lot emotionally to tell the story?
No, not really. It depends on the vibe. Mm-hmm. It's more so, I don't just tell random people because technically there is so much out there already about me, and when they find out, even some of my coworkers find out on their own somehow. And I don't know, maybe they kind of like snooping around with coworkers or something and found out they're like, oh my goodness, she's popular. Have you seen all this? I'm like, uh-oh.
You gotta know.
Yeah. So I was like, uh-oh, they found something on me.
The kidnapping of the Chibok girls represents just part of a problem in Nigeria. Experts say Boko Haram kidnapped tens of thousands of people in Nigeria, but the Chibok girls' story attracted international attention through the hashtag #BringBackOurGirls.
It was the first of its kind for most Nigerians, and it really showed us the power of social media and how social media could be used for collective action for change.
The first tweet using the Bring Back Our Girls hashtag went out on April 23, 2014, a few days after the kidnappings. A Nigerian activist and lawyer wrote, "Bring back our daughters, bring back our girls." Drew Hinshaw covered the protests in real time and later wrote a book about the kidnappings. He joined us via Zoom from Europe to talk about what happened.
A very small group of people, led by former Education Minister Obi Ezekwesili, decided, no, this is where we draw a line. We say these girls must come home. They're innocent. They have no role in this war. They should be freed and allowed to return to a school desk.
Those tweets and a small in-person protest in the Nigerian capital of Abuja received media coverage from Western outlets, but then American celebrities with massive social media followings got involved. Beginning with Russell Simmons, the founder of Def Jam Records, who wrote on April 30th, 234 Nigerian girls have gone missing and no one is talking about it. Hashtag Bring Back Our Girls.
So one by one celebrities started to kind of retweet this. Common, Young Jeezy, Mary J. Blige. It moved from kind of rap and R&B artists to Hollywood producers. Pretty soon the stars of America were tweeting this hashtag. And then I think the big moment, on May 8th, she was reading it in the East Wing of the White House and talking to her staff. And Michelle Obama said, well, what are we doing about this? And they walked down to the treaty room in the White House, and she held up, they searched for a Sharpie, they had trouble finding a Sharpie, and she held up a placard, Bring Back Our Girls. They tweeted it, and it became this moment. The next morning, I saw it from my own eyes. The next morning, that picture of Michelle Obama with the Bring Back Our Girls placard was everywhere in Nigeria. Every front page, every newspaper in Nigeria had that as the front page.
What do we want? Our girls! When do we want them? Yeah!
The Twitter attention led to real-world assistance. American drones and personnel were sent to the region. Other countries promised assets of their own.
For us over here in the United States, we felt helpless. And that's why that viral advocacy effort of the Bring Back Our Girls campaign, that was the only way that we felt that we could have our voices heard.
This hashtag transformed them into Boko Haram's most valuable asset. And in some ways that protected the girls. It also made it difficult for them to escape.
From April 2014, when the girls were kidnapped, until October of 2016, Boko Haram refused to set any of the girls free. Search efforts, for the most part, came up empty. Dozens of girls were set free as part of a hostage negotiation in late 2016 and early 2017, but not all. Today, a decade later, many of the kidnapped schoolgirls are still missing.
A lot of parents of these girls do feel like the global advocacy efforts are waning, and that there is a lack of political will from the Nigerian government to actually account for or rescue these girls.
Boko Haram remains a violent presence in northern Nigeria today. In March 2024, nearly 10 years after the Chibok girls were kidnapped, the terror group was linked to a pair of mass abductions in which hundreds of children went missing. They were returned home safe weeks later. Dr. Jumo Ayandale is an expert on security in the region.
A lot of non-state armed groups that have been operating in Nigeria for the last 5 years have adopted this tactic that Boko Haram used to kidnap, a lot of school children, and that's because, they get that international media attention, and then they're able to negotiate with the Nigerian government. When it comes to, the number of fatalities, they've actually generally gone down, especially when compared to the height of the Boko Haram insurgency in 2014 and 2015. We aren't seeing that many fatalities or that many violent activities. So I do have to give kudos to the Nigerian government in that regard.
The continued presence of terror groups in Nigeria is in some ways the result of geography. Since many terror groups operate in the north, they can be overlooked by government officials and economic leaders who are concentrated in other parts of the country.
For a lot of Southern Nigerians, out of sight, out of mind. For the people who live in Northeast Nigeria, they feel this impact every single day. They can see how their livelihoods were robbed from them, right? Some of them cannot go back to their communities. Most of them are farmers, and they can't necessarily go back to their farms. If they do, they're abducted, they're killed. So them not being able to be free to live their lives, that's one way that I would say that the insurgency has impacted their everyday lives.
When did you realize that it had, though, especially in the United States and other parts of the world where everybody was talking about bringing back?
When I came here.
Bring back your girls.
When I came to the U.S.
What was that moment like for you where it was so many people know who you are and what you had been through?
When I started speaking, at the time, our guardian at the time will take us to church or events and stuff like that, and we'll share our story, and it seems like a lot of people are interested in the story because they heard a glimpse of parts of it, but didn't have the whole full story and wanted to hear the full story. So at the time, a lot of people will come to church just to hear our story if they know we're going to be sharing it. So.
Was it surprising there would be so many people?
It was very surprising, especially when I heard that Michelle Obama was the one that started the whole hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. I'm like, oh my goodness! So yeah, it became, whoo, like everybody knows and everybody wants to know about it. And it was overwhelming, honestly. The sad part is there is still a bunch of girls still missing. It's difficult to heal from it when it's still happening every single day. She got those outfits made for the both of us, and just lovely.
What was, and you've probably been asked this a million times, I mean, the biggest difference, I guess, even today, you would say, between life in the United States compared to life in Nigeria?
Food.
Yeah?
The food is very different.
Better or worse?
I don't know if I want to answer that.
That's fair. That's fair.
And the thing we had for a snack or for lunch was pizza. I ate that pizza. I was sick the whole trip.
Wow.
I hated it. And since then, I just never tried it again. I stayed away from it. My husband eats it. I just don't.
How often have you gone back since moving to the United States?
A lot often. So I came in 2014. I went home in 2015. I went home in 2017 after I graduated high school in Oregon. A village right next to us was attacked, and it was terrifying. I was like, nope, not coming back again. I'm like, but your whole family is there. You can't just say that. Then you nailed them, and I was like,
Oh my gosh, I was so in shock. I was like, oh my goodness, yes. So yeah, that was our pictures for the engagement.
Joy Bashara is now married and settling into American life. Several other Chibok girls are in a similar position. At least one is studying to become a doctor. But there are still elements of culture shock that come with life in a new country, far from home.
I came here and it was like September and there was snow on the floor, especially Grundy, Virginia. I hated it. I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cold, I can't do it. But somehow I started thinking about going back home. I'm like, I don't know, but...
I mean, you moved here and you didn't know anyone.
No.
And you've built this life for yourself.
Yeah.
Do you ever take time to realize just how much success that is?
Yes. I actually take time to realize and give God just the praise and thanks every single day. Just because I've been through a lot of things doesn't mean it weighs me down. I still need to be up, be resilient, and move on with life, which is what made me succeeded. Or else, if I was to just continue on being depressed and having all this PTSD and stuff like that, I don't see myself finishing high school, college, or getting my master's. So you just can't dwell in the past, and the past is in the past. Let it go. What is today? What are you going to learn today?